Today we're doing a Zoom meeting with Big Al Scanlan from the Neverland Ranch. Waiting for Big Al to log on here. We got a bunch of questions that were asked by a lot of the fans. And we got some questions of our own. And of course, Big Al's gonna give us some of his stories. I'm here at the Holly Terrace. We're getting ready for tomorrow. I don't know if you could see, got the poster in the background. We got our flowers here. I'm sitting here in the shade under the tree because it's really hard to see without it. So we're kind of here right now. Just waiting on Big Al about a minute early. It's Thanksgiving Eve. We just did a little tribute to Dennis Tompkins. Next Tuesday, December the 2nd, mark the 10-year anniversary of his passing. He's buried here at Forest Lawn. So we went up, I gave a flower, we did a little tribute to him. His favorite song was Smile. So we played Smile. I posted it on the Facebook page, my page today. And for those watching this on YouTube, I'm going to try to not play music tomorrow, so I'll be able to record the Facebook Live to you guys watching on YouTube. If you want to get in on the flowers, we'll have a couple of flowers left. It'll be on the GoFundMe link for says Happy Michael Jackson Day. So if you want to get in on that, if not, we're going to be back for Christmas for a few days, day before Christmas Eve itself, Christmas Day, and maybe the day after. So without further ado, we welcome the man of the hour. There's the Neverland sign. There's the man himself, Big Al Scanlan. Welcome again, Big Al.
And thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. It's so good to see you with that sign at the Thriller House. The Thriller night there in the Thriller room. There was the sign, and I was thinking of you and the picture of Gypsy. So, well, we got a lot of new people. There were over 25,000 that haven't seen the Legend of Big Al before. So I have questions a little about yourself, and then we'll go right ahead.
Well, first of all, I have to say, speaking of the 25,000, I have to say congratulations on a job well done.
Oh, thank you.
It's pretty amazing, and of course, I hope every single one of them gets to see this, and I want to thank them for, their continued support and support to you and support to Michael. And it makes people like me that were around him for all those years really feel good about telling these stories. To have so many people that are still interested and want to hear it. So
it's a good group of people. We're at over 150 countries, and I get these messages. I'll share some of them with them. I'm sure you hear the same thing, but to see the people from different little countries where I have to go to Google Maps just to see where they are. Is
that really a country?
Yeah, right. I do. Is it really a country? If they have their own flag, I consider it a country. So, that's my standard. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. But we need people like you, and Michael Bush and people that were around to tell the stories that none of us, we would never get to know this.
Yeah. I got to say, I was a little apprehensive at first because I was very fortunate that all the years I worked for him, I never got, found out by anybody out there in the media. I never got bugged or anything. And it was the way that one of the fans that I know over in England talked to me about doing, this is way before Zoom and, all that stuff. But, and I was, and I probably wouldn't have done it except for he was this person I know over there was, said this is a trustworthy friend. And then, I did a couple more. I did the one with the podcast with those two guys in Australia, and I've done some with you. And it's really, it's therapeutic for me. I mean, I miss the Neverland, and I miss Mr. Jackson greatly. And so I get to laugh and cry about, some of the stories and just, how much it affects everybody, how much love there is out there for him. I mean, it's, I really enjoy doing it.
Speaking of the love and respect, the first time I heard you, I mean, I knew who you were, I knew the name, but I had never heard you speak. And I heard that podcast, and you kept saying Mr. Jackson. And to me, that, I mean, it's like a little thing, but yet it's not a little thing. It says a lot about you, and
Yeah.
having to get to meet you. And we've been out maybe 5-7 times, maybe 40 hours in those 5 times, which I love. But you always refer to him as Mr. Jackson, and it says a lot
Yeah.
about you and your character. So
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of respect for the guy. And I mean, even at the ranch, sometimes I'd call him, sometimes, and actually my youngest son was asking me just last night about that. And he goes, I said, did you always call him Mr. Jackson? I said, no. And I said, at the time, I never really thought about it, but looking back on it, I think I just kind of read the situation we were in. I think a lot of times it was just me and him, and we were talking about, whatever. I felt you felt so comfortable around him but when he had guests around him or whatever, I guess I felt it was appropriate to call him Mr. Jackson. So,
well, tell him the first time you met, and let's see what the viewers think that he would want you to call him after that incident.
Yes, that was quite a moment. I think I'd been there for a couple of weeks before the first time that he was actually home. And it was a fairly warm day, which even now, the Central Coast is that's what the area that it's really not the central part of California. It's more like the central part between the center, like San Francisco and
Yeah.
LA, but the weather here is really nice almost all the time. But even like tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day, it's supposed to be 80 degrees here. I'm in Poma right now, which is just north of Santa Maria a little bit, and it's supposed to be 80. And you think, well, it's winter time. How come it's not snowing or raining or cold or whatever? Which it gets cool at night, but anyway, It was a warm day, and we got word that the guests were heading towards the park. So I went over to check on the snow cone ice because we had a really nice vending machine outside that had a snow cone ice grinder on it, and had a big bin for ice. And anyway, it melted fairly fast. So I was over there grinding some ice. And for those of you that have been to the amusement park at Neverland, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll try to describe it as short as I can for people that haven't been there. In front of between the amusement park and the movie theater, there's a grass area, and then right in front of the park, there was cement laid down, and they have these big stamps. They come in when the concrete's wet, and they stamp it, and it makes it look like old-fashioned, flat rock or whatever. And the railroad tracks were set in it. So when you drive over it on a golf cart, all the lines that were in it to make it look like flat rock, you can hear the tires. I hear the tires of the golf cart coming down the railroad track, and I'm like maybe 6 feet away from the railroad track. There's a little garden with some green shrubs and stuff in it. And it stops, and I hear Mr. Jackson say, "Sure is a warm day today, isn't it?" Or maybe he said nice day. I can't remember. But anyway, I turned around and said, "Yeah, it sure is." And I'm wearing a black dress, like a tuxedo vest, and a white shirt and black dress pants. And it is a little warm for wearing, mostly black. And anyway, I said, "Yeah, it sure is." And I turned back around, went to grind into my ice, and all of a sudden, wham, a water balloon hits me right square in the middle of the back. And I hear the noise of the tires driving off, and everybody's laughing. And Michael goes, "It wasn't me." And so, I remember going back to grinding ice, and I was thinking to myself, and now I got to remember I'd only been there a couple of weeks. So, but anyway, I remember saying to myself, this is going to be a fun place to work. So
good first impression.
Yeah.
All right, we took some questions from the fans. This one's from Wendy Chow. She wants to know if you're planning to put a book together with all your stories.
Well, the better question is, because I've been planning on putting a book together for years, but I really haven't put much effort into it, and I really don't know why. But I've been getting so much I don't want to say flack from the fans. And I have a lot of friends that I've known for years, even years before I went to work at Neverland. And they keep telling me, actually, I had some friends in Las Vegas that I tell them, yeah, I said, I get a lot of these stories in my head when I have to be sitting around with somebody like you just talking about it. I don't have the, I guess if I actually sat down and really tried at a computer, but I think of a lot of things when I'm driving, especially sometimes I drive a semi for a friend of mine. And I said, I really get when I'm driving down the road in a semi, because you're just so you're driving for 11 hours a day across country. And, you know, sometimes there's nothing to see or do or anything. You can't really stop because you're on a time schedule and all that. And so the next time I was up there having dinner with them, they bought me a really nice little digital voice recorder. They said, okay,
Yeah.
when you're driving down the road, push this button and start talking into the machine.
Well, when we've been out for dinner, we spoke about that. I think the book's already written. You just have to pull the clips from all the interviews. I mean,
well, that's actually that's what I started doing. I started going back and I listened to that podcast with the two guys in Australia.
yeah.
And the thing I did with the MJ Book Club, which I was honored there because I actually got to do this nice podcast with them and hadn't written a book yet. But so I have actually started basically just doing bullet points and naming off stories. And then I have to kind of go and elaborate, you know, more and more. You can't just, some of my stories I probably tell shorter than I should, and some of them maybe longer or not as entertaining as I should. I don't know, but
No,
I know it's going to need some work to actually become a book, but at least I have started. So,
but
yes.
not only the book, to me, I think the audio book, because to hear you, you know, I know when we're sitting across the table, I mean, it's mesmer. I forget the prime rib that's sitting in front of me. You start talking and it's like mesmer, like you don't want the story to end. And I forget why we're even there, but to hear you tell the stories or with your passion and, you know, some stories are emotional and I look in your eyes and, you know, and when you talk about the kids and the Make-A-Wish and all that, it gets
right. Yeah.
So to hear you say these stories, I think would be just as entertaining. I think it'll be a novel. I mean, how many pages? It's like endless.
Yeah, that's the bad part. You know, when I get to the end, I'm going to think, you know,
what I leave out? The sequel. You wait for the sequel.
Did I miss a story? Yeah.
Right. All right. The second question comes from Ray. Was Michael easy to work for, and how did he treat the staff?
He was extremely easy to work for. You had to be well, it depends. I mean, there's close to 100 employees at the ranch at the time, and it kind of depended on what department you were in. As far, well, he treated everybody great, and but there's, depending on what department you're in, sometimes you definitely had like in the amusement park. If you worked in the amusement park, you knew you were going to have one-on-one, you know, experience with Michael. I mean, you knew you were going to deal with him personally. You know, if you worked in the grounds department, you might not, although, you know, I'd seen him and heard many stories about him stopping and, you know, people would be planting flowers or mowing the grass or whatever. And he would stop and talk to him and thank him. I mean, he was nice to everybody. And like I said, depending on the department you worked in, you might have to learn how to be a little flexible on your schedule. Like in the amusement park, we pretty much knew that just about every weekend, unless it was pouring down rain, we were going to have to work. So we would schedule days off during, you know, we kind of rotated around it. I mean, everybody got, we developed, after a couple of years, we developed a pretty good schedule where if you wanted to, you could have 4 days off in a row, 2 for this week and 2 for next week. But then you had to work a bunch of days in a row. But
oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. And, you know, you could get called at the last minute, you know, a big change of plans or whatever. And that was, you know, right. I guess that's probably a fairly regular thing with anybody, you know, in the entertainment business, because you don't know what their schedule is going to be. So, but yeah, he was very nice to me personally. He treated me great. He treated me better than some of my friends do. I mean, he was very nice to me, and I never heard anybody out there say that he wasn't nice to him. You know, so yeah, he was a good guy to work for.
And the legend, where did the name Big Al come from?
Well, to be real honest with you, that started with me all the way back in my high school days.
Oh, wow.
but and I don't know. Actually, it was probably at the ranch. I mean, I didn't like introduce myself to anybody as Big Al.
Right.
I want to say that Lance Brown, who was the ranch manager when I went to work there, I think after I don't think I told him that was my nickname. I don't know if I'd have a reason to really tell anybody that, but
Right. Hi, I'm Big Al.
yeah, but in the carnival business, you need a nickname. So, but my nickname came from the high school days. But anyway, I think after working there for a while, I think Lance just established my nickname. He just started, and I just noticed that just then pretty soon everybody at the ranch started calling me Big Al.
That's a great name. Yeah. How could you not love a guy named Big Al?
Mr. Jackson started calling me Big Al. And so,
Right.
I guess, might as well stick with it. And then
There's only one Big Al, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, that was, I was about to say, I was really honored because he actually named one of the alligators after me.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't even know
that. So yeah, we had two Big Als.
Big
there.
Al, that makes sense. AL, yeah.
And I remember, see, there we go. That leads me right into
see, it's very easy to interview you.
So we had a group of kids there, and this was before the steam train. So I think I must have had them on the small train, part of the group. We usually split them into two. And I had a group of kids in the zoo, and we're standing there in front of the alligator facility, and you can get really close. I mean, it's a gate with a glass, and there's a wall with glass right up against the water they're in. And the kids are oohing and on. I think Mark was there, and he was in the back part of it, and he was actually feeding some of them raw chicken or whatever, and getting them to come out of the water, and they open their mouth and stand up a little bit and hiss. And anyway, I said, hey, I think we had, I want to say maybe four alligators. And I told the kids, I said, hey, one of them's named Big Al after me. Can you figure out which one it is? And this one kid immediately, you gotta love kids. They're so honest. And no filter, I guess.
Right.
Raises his hand. He goes, I know. And he goes, it's that big fat one down. So I put my hand on his neck like this, and I said, you want a closer look? He goes, no. Okay, I'm good.
One of the most common questions a bunch of people ask, what do you see in the future of Neverland, if anything, or what we're hoping, or?
Yeah, I can. I noticed. I kind of reviewed online. I saw the post, and I tried to go through some of the questions, and there were several of them that had to do with Neverland now or in the future. And I think I can answer all. I'll try to answer all of them briefly here. I really don't know exactly what's going on there. I can tell you that the Burkle family are great people. I've known them. Well, I should say I've known them, but I met them many, many years ago when they came to the ranch when Mr. Jackson still owned it. And Ron Burkle's a fabulous businessman, very, very successful businessman. And he helped Michael out with some, recommendations on financial stuff. And he cares for Michael very much. I've actually have had some conversations with Mr. Burkle. And he cares for Michael. And I know that they've spent a lot of money fixing things up, and it's not going to be, like a bed and breakfast. It's not going to be, he didn't buy it as an investment just to turn around and sell it. And this is all my opinion from what they're doing out there. His son and his grandkids are that's going to be their residence. Actually, it is they're living there. So I think that family is going to keep it. I don't think now, as far as opening it up, I don't think it'll ever be opened up to the public just to come in anytime you want, because it's this guy's house.
Sure.
But I do believe that he's going to follow the footsteps of Mr. Jackson as far as doing charity type work. And, I don't know if that's going to lead to fan events or not, but I would just ask everybody to be optimistic and give the guy he's only had it. Well, it's just about a 1-year anniversary now. And like I said, after sitting, it wasn't completely not maintained, but it was not fully maintained for
Right.
13 years.
Sure,
know,
sure.
So there was some, just whatever, there was quite a bit of stuff that had to be done, and it's probably still ongoing. I don't know. But as far as will it ever open to the public, I can't say for sure. I kind of doubt it. Will there ever be events out there? I personally am hoping that it will be, and if it is, I'll make sure that somehow I get invited.
Sure.
Just be, I mean,
I know Prince. I mean, Prince said that he was on one of his Instagram lives and said that he said more likely yes than no that something will be going on there. Personally, I'm hoping maybe the Thriller Night next year would be up there.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah, he seemed to be kind of he seemed to be kind of for that, and I know well that you were there. You were right there when I met him for the first time after 10 years after since Michael passed away. And he did tell me that he's been up there a few times, and he was just up there like the week before or whatever. Right. So I'm glad to see it. I think all the kids have been up there, so at least they're part of what's going on, and they're on good terms with that family up there. So you gotta.
That's a good sign, right? Yeah,
it's a good sign. Yeah.
Just leave the giving tree alone, please. You make sure no one messes with the tree.
I'll check up on it next time I get up there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. Did you ever see the room in Neverland where Michael kept all the stuff from his fans? Comes from Rebecca. It was a special room that he kept all the books and all the things that people sent them, I believe.
He kept a lot of that stuff in his room, and then some of it would just get boxed up, and I don't know where it went. I do know that the stuff that actually found its way to Neverland, because I actually got to take part in this a few times. They wanted, generally the fan mail, I don't know where it went, but it went somewhere and it got all sent to some company or some group of people that went through it down in LA. Now, the stuff that actually found its way to Neverland, and I remember this, I got to remember to write this down because this is something I won't remember from my book, but I remember looking at, I got to back up a little bit. I was part of a group of people that occasionally, the stuff that made it to Neverland, they wanted somebody up there to look through it just to see if because there was hate mail and negative stuff, and that was the idea of people that were close to Michael that had some parameters of what to look for and what to toss. If it was anything that looked threatening or whatever or suspicious, we would have to make a decision. Sometimes we'd have to even open stuff to read it and see if it was really bad. But anyway, so I got to see a lot of this stuff. We'd go up and sometimes if I was working at night, security would call me and say, "Hey, you want to come up here and help us do this?" And I was curious to see where all this stuff came from and how it got here, because generally people didn't know where the address or where to send it. And I don't even think that the U.S. mail, I don't think they delivered to the gate. We had a P.O. box, but I remember seeing one that said, to Mr. Michael Jackson at a very large ranch in California. That's all it had. It had no zip code.
I think the mailman knew.
And somehow it wound up in our PO box.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, and you'd see, I was looking, I just wanted to see where from all over the world these things were coming from.
Sure.
Anyway, so the stuff that actually made it to Neverland, we would kind of filter through it and see if there was anything that looked bad or negative or suspicious or whatever. And the rest of it, we would usually just leave up there in the conference room and tell him that there's a bunch of stuff up here for you. And he'd come up there and look through everything, and he'd grab armfuls of stuff and take it back to his room with him, and the rest of it we just box up and put in storage. So he kept a lot of it in his actual room, which he had a pretty large bedroom. So it was
okay. One of my favorite stories and a special request. It's a story about a certain intruder that made its way to Neverland Ranch one evening.
Yeah, you got to understand that this is a 2,700 acres, so the fence line is pretty enormous. And it's basically old fashioned split rail wood fence. So anybody, even somebody old and fat like me, could just step over the fence and walk in. The advantage to our security point of view is that during the daytime, on a typical day, we'd have, somewhere between 50 and 100 employees, depending on what day it is and whatnot. And just about everybody had a radio. So, and everybody knew everybody. So if there was a stranger that approached in the daytime, he usually got caught and subsequently, taken away, given the choice of having the sheriffs take him away or just, go away. So, but yeah, one day we were having a big event, and every time I tell a story, I got to talk to somebody else, this other person that I'm not going to mention his name, but he was there, see if he can remember. Actually, I talked to it. Well, anyway, so it's a very formal event. Formal gowns, tuxedos. We did valet parking, a lot of celebrities, and now it's around 9 o'clock at night. It's one of those typical winter evenings where it is getting pretty cool, and most people have either gone in the last hour or they're lining up over at the theater. That's where they pick their cars up. We did the valet from the theater, so we're bringing cars down the front of the theater, and it's down to, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen people. So I went over there because I'm freezing cold. I went over there just to go inside the theater and warm up a little bit. And I went behind the counter and I think I got, something to drink, coffee or something. And I see a guy that's, like I said, everybody's in tuxedos and formal dresses. And I see a guy that's wearing like old faded blue jeans and a, flannel shirt and a knit hat, hadn't shaved in 4 or 5 days, kind of scruffy looking guy. And I'm thinking, this guy can't be a guest, but he's talking to one of the guests that I know very well and is very good friends with Mr. Jackson. So I'm thinking, now, is this guy just really good at this, or he didn't fit in. So I was just about ready to call security, and I thought, I'm going to ask somebody else. So I went up in the projection booth and I said, hey, Bob, I said, who's that guy talking to, so-and-so? And he looked down the stairway and he looked out there and he saw the guy and he looked at me and he goes, you're kidding. I said, no, I said, he's got to be a trespasser that found his way in here because it was nighttime. I said, he just snuck in here and he's, getting free food, or I don't know what he's doing, but I'm going to call security and have him handcuffed. And he looked at me, started laughing. He goes, that's Johnny Depp. So, man, did I feel like an idiot. And then to make the matters even worse, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes later, there's like the only people left are Johnny Depp and his wife at the time and his brand new baby at the time.
Oh, wow.
And she takes the baby and goes into the bathroom. And so it's just me and Johnny Depp. I'm on one side of the snack bar and he's on the other side. And he starts going on about Neverland, and he keeps saying, you guys, referring to the employees. He goes, you guys are, he just was going on and on and on. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, yeah, and you were about 30 seconds from getting thrown face first on the floor and putting handcuffs on. But yeah, that was a funny moment for me. And
you wouldn't have been behind the scenes anymore. We would have known the legend of Big Al at that, as TMZ is there with the.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that no matter who I told that story to, they'd be saying, trying to defend myself and keep my job, they'd go, you don't know Johnny Depp? I don't think I was looking that far. I was just looking at the fact that he just looked way out of place at this party. So
let's see. This is from Rebecca and Nixie from the Philippines. Rebecca, I'm sorry. And was there a favorite room or place that Michael would hang out at? Did you have a favorite spot?
I don't think you could actually say he had a favorite spot. It kind of depended on his mood at the time. Was anybody, I mean, he really liked your tree,
Oh,
but
you saw him up there once, right? You said?
yeah.
Oh,
And possibly was up there more often than I saw him up there because I walked. If I was taking the small train for a ride, just to take it for a ride because I like to see movement, even if I wasn't riding somebody, I'd park the golf cart behind the house where the garage area is, and I'd walk from there way to the small train. Well, to do that, you walk the entire length of the house on the road in front of the house, and you walk right past this tree. And I was so used to doing that I really didn't. I mean, I didn't look up there every time I went past it, but I'm sure there was times I went past it that he was up there wishing he had a rubber band and a paper clip or something. But yeah, I had seen him up there, and other people had seen him up there, and he would usually be either reading something or writing in a book. So I know that for some peace and quiet and meditation, and maybe
Yeah.
being creative and writing a song, I
Right.
think that was probably one of his favorites. I know another place that he went to a few times when he was there by himself was what we call the Sky Gazebo. It's way up on top of the hill that you come over from the front gate to the house. You come over a pretty big hill, and they built a Sky Gazebo up there. It had a deck that was I don't know, I want to say it was probably a 40-foot by 40-foot deck, and half of it was covered, and there was a nice dining table there and a bunch of chairs, and then the other half was open, and it had just some nice lounge chairs, and it had one or two of those spy glass things you could look through, like on top of the Empire State Building.
Wow.
Had a couple of those in it, and you could see the entire valley. I actually went up there a few times and just sat up there and just, it's so you see the entire valley, and
Sure.
you can't, with all the trees, you almost can't even see the house or the amusement park because there's so many sycamore and oak trees, and it is
Wow.
very, very peaceful. It's like you're on top of the world. It's pretty amazing. So I know he went
Wow.
up there a few times, but like when he had guests there, they would have. I think he just liked experiencing everything, especially with other people, especially people who'd never been there before. Because I remember one who the guests were. Well, actually, this happened more than once, but they'd have dinner. Okay, we're going to have dinner in the movie theater tonight. And then tomorrow night, we're going to have dinner at the Sky Gazebo. And then the next night, we're going to have dinner in the Indian Village. We had these beautiful campfire, they're propane, but it looked like, it had fake logs. It
Wow.
looked like a really nice and real authentic teepees, and well, with the fact that they had heaters inside and really nice plush carpeting, they were fairly authentic other than that
Yeah.
But and he was just, and even they had dinner in the amusement park one night. I mean, it's like, I think he liked experiencing everything there, but I'm sure it kind of depended on his mood, like I said, that where he would have a favorite spot. So.
Sharon wants to know, did you have a favorite spot? And what was your favorite memory? If you could pick one, I'm sure it's.
Yeah, I think I gave one of those memory. Well, anytime it was just me and Mr. Jackson having kind of a one-on-one.
Sure.
Those were moments that were, and well, yeah, I got one story I think I've told before, but I'll tell it again. But anyway, my favorite spot, had to pick one favorite spot, it would probably be sitting in the cab of the steam train. I was so opposed to us getting a steam train just because of, well, the safety factor. I mean, a live steam boiler is there's a certain amount of, which this one had every modern safety gadget on it, fire eye computer to monitor the flame and everything, and the water level. So, I mean, it was, we made it as safe as we possibly could, but there's a lot of maintenance, and it's like, and I wasn't opposed to doing it. It's just that we really, being a private residence, we really weren't set up like a Osprey farm or something where we had this huge shop with all these mechanics and everything. So, but after we got it, I absolutely fell in love with it because I've always liked trains, and to have a live steam train. And I mean, it was, so every time I got in that thing, especially at night when I would leave the depot if I was taking it to put it up in the barn to put it away for the night or just going for a ride. At nighttime, as soon as you leave the depot, you can't see the lights of the amusement park. You can't see the lights of the house. All you can see is the headlight shining ahead. You got this mountain on this side and you know, down that mountain on that side, and all these sycamore and oak trees, and it's lighting up ahead of, you know, the track in front of you, and steam blowing out both sides. I mean, it's just, it was like going back in time 200 years. I mean, it was just, I never got tired of that. So I would say if I had to pick one spot for myself as a favorite spot to go visit,
Right.
that would be it.
All right. Did you ever see Michael work in the garden?
Oh, wait a minute. There was a second part to that question. Wait a minute, come over. Everybody say hello to Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey guys.
He's kind of floating in and out of there. That's my youngest, and there's some, I have to make when we do our Christmas one, I got to make a correction. There's a picture of me in my Santa suit, and he was my helper, and of course my old age and my glasses, I was like, is that Chris or Nathan? Because Nathan didn't start going out there at the very beginning because he was so young, and Chris did. But I'm like, and I'm looking at that picture, I'm going, well, he's got blonde hair. That's gotta be Nathan.
Right.
So Nathan was my help when I was Santa Claus out there at Neverland. But anyway,
And that Santa Claus, that was the Michael Bush outfit, right?
correct, yeah. And now that I'm actually home, I was going to try and find it and put it on, but I ran out of time. I had so many things to do. So
You got a month. We got 4 weeks.
yeah, I was
Plenty
gonna
of time.
say, but yeah, by the time we do the Christmas thing, I'll find it and put it on.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great.
But anyway, you know, like you said, it's impossible to tell you what my any favorite moment. There's so many of them, but one of them, and I told this story at Brad Sundberg's in the studio in Los Angeles a few years ago, and I told Brad, I said, I know that everybody here is they know the Speed Demon video, but I said, to really set the story up, you got to watch the Speed Demon video first. So everybody out there that's watching this, kind of think in your mind if you want to push pause and watch the Speed Demon video, that's fine. But anyway, kind of get the Speed Demon video in your head.
Okay.
Okay. So now Dan and I are the only two in the park, and typically Dan wasn't in the park. And he was a maintenance guy. I mean, he helped out in the park, but for some reason it was just me and him there that day. And it was probably one of those days that it was a surprise change in somebody's schedule. And anyway, Mr. Jackson's there and a couple of guests, and security calls us on the radio and says, the guests are coming down to the park and they want a couple of scooters. And when there was no guests there, we put a lot of the stuff we put down in the train barn all the way at the north end of the ranch, just to keep it out of the weather and keep it clean and whatnot. And so Dan and I hop in my golf. Now Dan is like, I don't want to insult Dan, but compared to me, he's very small.
Okay.
I mean, he's like the size of like a young teenager. I mean, he's just
Okay.
He's thin, he's light, he's a little bit shorter than me. So if you can imagine us two just standing there, that had to be a comical just to see us two standing together. So we hop in my golf cart and we go to the north end where the train barn is, and we get two scooters. Now these scooters are little tiny, like moped type scooters. So that's got to be a little comical right there, imagining me sitting on one of these things, because you can hardly see it with me sitting on it. And so we're driving from the train barn to the amusement park, which is a good half a mile or whatever. So now by the time we get to the amusement park, Mr. Jackson and the guests are there, and they're standing out in front like they're waiting for the scooters. And so Dan and I drive up, and as I'm getting closer to Michael, I can see he's looking at me, and he is just busting a gut. He's laughing so hard. And I know he's laughing at me. He's not laughing at Dan. He's laughing at me. He's probably thinking, that poor scooter. So I've been blessed with this. I mean, every once in a while, I just like something will pop into my head that just so perfectly fits the moment. So as I'm driving up to him, I drive right up within about a 16th of an inch of his toe with the front tire of the moped and stop. And I look at him and I go, "Hey, mister, want to autograph my belly?" So now if you, like I said, if you can
Oh,
replay,
absolutely. Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
can replay Speed Demon video, you know exactly. And he immediately, I thought he was going to start crying. He was laughing so hard. He almost stopped breathing. He's like, he just was, he was hysterical. So, you know, to be able to do that, I mean, when I look back on that, it was funny at the time. Dan was laughing too. Everybody was laughing except
Sure.
me.
Sure.
I was laughing too. It was a contagious thing. But I look back on it now and I go, to be able to make Michael Jackson laugh hysterically like that,
Absolutely.
that's a moment that I'll never forget.
And none of us can ever look at this the Speed Demon video again now without thinking of you. It's going to make it even funnier. So
Yeah. I'm sure everybody out there will be watching the video and they'll be naming, hey, that's Big Al.
the right or the left? All right. Here's one from Cherie. Did Michael know how much he was loved?
Absolutely believe he does. Yeah. I mean, anybody that's ever saw him live or anybody that's had the pleasure of being in a small environment with him when he's around fans and how, I mean, he picks up on it. You know, I saw him live in Hawaii. And I saw him both in New York at the Madison Square Garden. And I got to believe that no matter where you were sitting in that theater, you had to know. And I remember him and I actually had a conversation about this one. Actually, it was not long after the Hawaii show. I saw him the next day at the hotel and I told him, I said, I had no idea you worked so hard to keep us all employed. Because I mean, well, you've been to plenty of his shows, so you know, I mean, it's one thing to watch a video, but when you're sitting there for, 2 hours plus.
Yeah.
And he mixes it up. He'll have some, some ballads, slow songs or whatever, but that's a huge stage. I mean, that thing's 200 foot across and he uses every square inch of it. And that's like, like I said, I know he does have a couple of slow songs, but that's really like playing racquetball for 2.5 hours. I mean, that is freaking work.
Not to mention a cherry picker. And I mean,
right. Yeah. But, it was probably a couple months later when we're back at Neverland, we were talking about different entertainers. And I think I told him about going to see Siegfried and Roy. And I said, you really get the feeling when you're sitting out there, you can tell if the person on stage really appreciates the fans and really enjoys putting a show on for them. And I told him, I thought Siegfried and Roy, it was, for me, it was easy to pick up that they really enjoyed what they were doing. And I think everybody should get that from him. That, I mean, it's hard work. And I'm sure that getting him on the airplane for to head to the very first tour, it's got to be, 3 or 4 people pushing him up the steps of the airplane. But once he gets out there, I think he absolutely loves performing to the fans, and it's only because he does appreciate, their love.
Michael Bush told me at a Star on the Walk of Fame, he said the louder the fans would clap, the harder he would dance, he said, which was like amazing to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, just sitting out there in the audience with the fan, like, the people that have never saw the show before. And, like I wouldn't even want to tell them what's going to happen just to ruin the, and just to see like when you see the people fainting and stuff, like that was real. That wasn't, made up. That's how people really felt about it. So it's good to know that he knew that.
To go a little bit farther, this isn't about Michael, but it's about the people that work for him, which say a lot about him. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the people on the tour. I had a friend of mine that owns a carnival in California. Well, he's sold it to his son now, but he just happened to be in Hawaii with his wife on a vacation. And I told him I was going, this was weeks ahead of time. He told me he was going over there because I told him I was going over there. And he got tickets on his own. I probably could have got him tickets, but I didn't want to press my luck. I got tickets on the VIP deck, which I was pretty
Wow.
expecting that, but I was actually, Catherine was there and some of the family was there on this
Wow.
little raised deck right in front of the soundboard out in the middle of the arena. And I still have that ticket. I was pretty jazzed.
Oh,
Um, Dave he was familiar with the Jumbotron because he'd been out to the ranch and, we talked about the Jumbotron and whatnot. And the next day I saw him at the hotel and he goes, I want you to tell those Jumbotron guys that I don't know if there's anybody in that stadium, and the stadium was packed, Aloha Stadium. He goes, I don't know if there's anybody out there that noticed this, but I want them to know that at least one person noticed this, because he says, I just know from the entertainment business, the way entertainment business is, a Michael Jackson show is the only place this would have happened. And I said, what's that? And he goes, there was a song that at one point there was the Jumbotron is made up of these 1 foot by 1 foot computer boxes that have all these LEDs or have these hand painted pixels on. Everything's LED now, but this was before LEDs. So anyway, each one of those is like its own little computer, and it's a pretty complicated thing, not like today's Jumbotrons. But anyway, he goes, I noticed that towards the end of one of the songs, one of those went out. And he goes, I know from talking to you, the amount of work that's involved in changing one of those things. You have to have a person. I had a cherry picker at the ranch, and I had the luxury of not having 60,000 people watching me. So drive the cherry picker up there to change it. So, but on tour, they don't have that luxury. So normally, if an entertainer is using a Jumbotron, they won't fix the Jumbotron until the next time they set it up at the next spot. Or if they're doing multiple shows, they might fix it, the next day there. But typically, most people are, every day they're moving it. Well, they had a song that was a slow song, and it was just like, I think it was just a light that was focused on Michael, as one of his ballads or whatever. And the Jumbotrons were off, and they had a guy, and these units weigh about 60, 70 pounds. This guy rappels down the outside, the front side. Another guy has to be in the back. He has to undo 2 4 3/8 bolts, unplug a power line, unplug 2 computer lines. And then the guy outside takes that one. So now he's got 2 of them, 1 in each hand, puts the other one in, has to hold it flush up against her while the guy in the back plugs everything back in and bolts, and then rappels back up.
wow.
And I'm like, and I didn't see that, but I believe that, Dave wouldn't make that up. And I remember because I got to work with the Jumbotron guys quite a few times at the ranch. And I got to tell him that, and we got on the subject of Michael and how much he appreciates everybody around him, the people that work for him. And these guys were all like my age, and they listened to my kind of music, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix. They weren't Michael Jackson.
Right.
But they're the ones actually that talked me into going. They said, if you ever get a chance to see him, you got to go see him, just from a production standpoint, whether you like his music or not. But anyway, so we got on the subject of how much he appreciates his workers, all the technical guys. And he goes, they said, Big Al, this guy was constantly talking to every single person out there and telling them thanks and what a great job they do and how important they are. And so I think that adds to the energy. Going back to work? Yeah. All right, see you later. So I think that adds to the energy, and it says a lot about Michael, because you hear stories about people that work for some entertainers, and they just they won't sign up for the second tour because they don't have people would stop whatever they were doing. I mean, Benny Collins at the time, I don't know.
Oh wow. Yeah, of course.
Retired by now, but he was one of the most sought after production guys out there because he knew how to work a crew and command respect, and everybody liked working for him. And he did Madonna, he did the Rolling Stones. Everybody,
Wow.
he was there. And all of these guys, JC, he was the main, one of the main Jumbotron guys. Whatever they were doing, if they got the phone call, Michael's going on tour, sign me up. Sign me up.
The best want to work with the best, right? I mean, it's and he probably took people to another level, even maybe. All right, let me see. What got a couple more. What other jobs did you do at the ranch? Well, you pretty much answered everything. And were there any barbecues you went to?
Any barbecues I went to?
Yeah, like was there like to have barbecue at the ranch for the employees or?
Oh, yeah. We had, well, every single one of our events that we did, like whether it was the inner city kids or the kids in the hospital or whatever, and the family day for the employees. The family day for the employees, if you worked in the park, was actually, I mean, you enjoyed it because you wanted to see your fellow employees have fun.
Sure.
It was nice to be able to bring your family out there, but it was like the most labor intensive day for us because typically during a small event where we can break them up into two groups and they kind of have a schedule, they go here and they go here. So you can draw people from other areas to help you. And well, during family day, because it's so many people, the park basically is open all the time. I mean, we did shut it down. Everybody eats at the same time, but pretty much the whole day, if you're running a ride, you're running a ride the whole day. So
wow.
It was, and then we did, we had Santa Maria, which is probably one of the bigger towns close to the ranch, is world famous for, barbecue, especially tri-tip. So we had huge barbecues. We would do, well, we always had for every event, we always had a selection from, vegetarian, but then we'd always barbecue tri-tip or a chicken or both, and hot dogs and hamburgers and like that. So yeah, every time we had an event, we did a big barbecue for whoever the event was for. And so, yeah, I got to go to all of those.
Nice. Did Michael have a favorite ride? And did you ever watch a movie with Michael in the theater?
I never watched a movie with Michael. It was really kind of as an employee. I mean, if he invited somebody in, I'm sure they wouldn't turn him down.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. I mean, if he invited me in the movie theater, I'm sure I would have went in there and watched it with him. And there was a few times that guests actually invited. I don't know if I might have been invited once, but I heard a story from years earlier where somebody made themselves comfortable with going in there, and I believe they probably did get invited. But you really should. It's kind of like my, the Thanksgiving story. You should politely turn them down because that's not really, as an employee, that's not.
We're saving that one for the finale because it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. It's one of my favorite.
And as far as what was the other one?
In the theater, or did Michael have a favorite ride?
Oh, again, man, that's tough. He probably spent more time, and I don't want to say this was his favorite ride. It's kind of like his favorite place. It kind of depends on what the next move in that chess game going on in his head was. Bumper cars, they like to he'd save the bumper cars to last. And actually, it was kind of like all the way at the north end of the park, so it kind of just made sense to start here and walk up there.
Oh, okay.
But I think the other reason was because they would ride the bumper cars for, I don't know, 30 minutes at least. It's on a timer, so as soon as it shut off, you go again. So I hit it again, and the bumper. I mean, you really had to be there and see it in action to really appreciate the story. But it was a typical. Well, I don't want to say it definitely wasn't a typical bumper cars, but our floor had, most bumper cars, they have a pole coming up the back, and they get the motor gets part of the electricity from the floor and part of, well, it's a positive and a negative. And our floor was made with these insulator strips between them, and everything was in the floor, so there was no pole going up the back. So we had, in the ceiling, we had all these huge speakers with the sound system. We had mirror balls, we had strobe lights, we had fog machines in the floor. We had the cars had, all the pinstriping on the cars was done in fluorescent tape, and the roof was full of black lights. So it was just, I mean, it was like a crazy wild light show, and the sound system was loud, and it had a sidewall all the way around it so you could keep all the fog inside, and it had cold flow units to keep well, as long as it wasn't too windy, it would keep the fog down low. And it was just, I mean, it was just an experience to be in there, you know, and do that. So they'd ride it over and over and over and over. Well, then, and I remember the very first time that they did this, I'm thinking, man, we've been in here for like 30 minutes. There's got to be something else to do. And all of a sudden, that's good. And they get out, and Michael starts pushing the car. I always had the cars all backed up, so the floor was completely empty, so there wasn't any empty cars out there in the way. And he starts pushing the cars back. I said, no, I'll get that later. He goes, no, he says, I want to do it right now. I'm like, what the? So I, you know, everybody grabs a car and they're pushing them back into the hole. And so now I'm getting ready to walk out and leave. And he goes, no, he says, we're going to dance. Well, he pushes all the cars out of the way because it's a huge, you know, it's a 80 foot floor, I think, 80 foot by, I don't know, 40 foot or something. And it's nice, smooth, you know, polished steel. And with all these lighting effects and this huge, massive sound system, he tells me what song to put on. I put that on, and they danced for like 30 minutes. It was like their own little disco there, you know. So I would say of all the rides, he probably spent more time there, but that was partially because it was like the end of the night for the amusement park, and they wanted to ride the ride for a while and then dance. But he really liked the Sea Dragon. I think he liked the Sea Dragon the most. I mean, I know that he rode the Zipper, and he tells a story about riding the Zipper for like, you know, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But I think he really liked the Sea Dragon the best. I think he had the most fun riding it. He didn't ride it 30 minutes in a row like he did the bumper cars, but he just seemed to have a lot of fun on the Sea Dragon.
I saw you posted a couple of weeks ago. You found one of the rides, right? What, you were at the carnival?
Yeah, well, I was doing an inspection out in Scottsdale at the Scottsdale Fairmont Princess. This was last winter. They were doing a Christmas, a winter fest or whatever, because nobody can use Christmas anymore, I guess. But anyway, I was one of the rides out there, and it's funny because I'd seen this ride before. It was at EDC a few years ago, and I didn't notice this. You know, you can't mess with the Michael Jackson fans. I immediately got, when I posted that picture, I actually spelled, and it's funny because this guy owns I think he owns 4 rides that were at Neverland. And he's got a sign on every one, which I'm glad he does. He's not, I mean,
yeah,
he's trying to make a buck off Michael. Dave was so thankful, which I got to tell a story about Dave, how thankful he was about, I would rent some extra rides in the wintertime because Michael was there more and he had more guests there and he wanted more rides. So in the wintertime, before we got kiddie rides, you know, I would rent some extra rides. And anyway, he puts these up there because he really owes a lot he's very thankful for the extra income he got from renting these rides to Michael. And he loved the place when he came up there. I mean, you know, he just loved it. So he's not putting the signs up trying to make a buck off Michael, but he misspelled his name on the spiders. So. Right. I sent him a thing. I said, you need to get, and it's funny because all the other signs are spelled right. I don't know where you found, you know, they just, I don't know who makes their signs, but I said, you need to call that guy and tell him he needs to wake up. You know, so.
Let me see. We got a couple more. If you got a few minutes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, this one's sad. Let me see.
Once I get started, I can't stop. So.
All right. This one's one of my favorite ones too. In the theater, watching the Ghost video, girl in the chair.
Okay.
No, not the girl in the chair, but I don't want to give away the ending.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, we needed to tell a couple of Ghost video stories because it's close to the
25 year anniversary.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I have a few ghost stories. But anyway,
okay.
So there is a school across the street called Midland School. It's a private school. And I think they typically only have 60 students, and it's a fairly pricey school, but it's kind of primitive too. I mean, the only room that's got, I think, electricity is the computer room. But anyway, we had a group from Midland School. We would bring half of them over one week, and then a couple weeks later we'd bring the other half over because they didn't want us to bring them all over at once, and which was good for us. It was only 30 people that way. Anyway, there's a group in there from Midland School, and they kind of have a short visit because they just walk from across the street. They walk all the way to the arcade. They play in the arcade for a while, and Michael was hanging out with them and taking pictures in the photo booth, and so it was a big deal for everybody. And then I load them all on the steam train and I take them down to the movie theater and or down to the amusement park. They ride rides for half hour or so, and then we take them in the movie theater and they're watching Ghosts. So, and at that time, most people, unless you were a true Michael Jackson fan, you didn't even know about Ghosts because it didn't really get promoted. So I would tell them a little story about it. I would tell them that, Stephen King was involved and Stan Winston. I tell them a little bit about Stan Winston. And I tell them, when the video's over, I say, you have to stay seated and you have to watch the credits because Michael plays 5 parts. And during the credits, it shows him getting made up as all these characters. And it's, it's kind of interesting to watch. Okay. So then I give the thumbs up to the projectionist. He starts the video, and I went out out to the snack bar to steal a Reese's peanut butter cup or something. And Michael comes out there and he goes, listen. He says, as soon as the credits start, and I'm already mad now because I just gave him instructions what to do when the credits start. He goes, as soon as the credits start, there's a girl in there. It's her birthday. It was her 16th birthday. I think it was her 16th birthday. Yeah. And he goes, as soon as the credits start, I want you to bring her into the dance studio. Now, I should put a picture of the dance studio up on my background there, but I'm sure everybody's seen pictures of it or knows what it is.
Sure.
It's a big giant room with a wooden floor and all mirrors on this side and sound equipment on this side. But anyway, all the way at the far end, there's an old-fashioned, really high-back, wooden, black, with some gold pinstriping rocking chair. So I wait till the credits start, and I didn't know whose birthday it was, but the headmaster or one of the adult supervisors was all the way in the back row by the door. So I went in there and tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Whose birthday is it?" And he pointed out who it was. And I went over and tapped her on the shoulder. It kind of startled her a little bit. I said, "You need to come with me." And she's like, she thinks he's in trouble or something. I said, "No," I said, "Somebody wants to talk to you out in the lobby." And so she's a little apprehensive. She gets up, she comes out with me, and she goes, "Where is he?" And I go, "Over here." So I take her over and I open the door of the dance studio. And I didn't know what was going on. I was just doing what I was told to do. And so I opened the door of the dance studio and I go, "He's sitting in that rocking chair." Well, the rocking chair, the back of the rocking chair was to the door. And it's, it's like 30 or 40 feet away, 30 feet, probably 30 feet away. And it's kind of dark down at that end. There's a big light up here for the moonwalker thing. So the whole room's kind of lit up, but it's kind of shadowy down there. And I think if you looked hard enough, you could see like the top of his hat, but you really couldn't tell or somebody said. So anyway, she walks down there, and right as she walks up to this side of the chair, he like swings out of the chair, goes down on one knee and takes her hand and says happy birthday to her.
Wow.
I just about I was like a wreck the rest of the night thinking about that. It brought tears to my eyes. And I'm thinking, you know what? And there's only 3 people in the world that actually got to witness that. And one of those is no longer with us. And I'm thinking, and he didn't do it he didn't do it.
Right.
And there wasn't, I think I think the first time I told you a story, you were talking, he did it for her.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no other reason. He just flat out did it for her. Somebody he didn't even know that it was her 16th birthday. And she's probably still trying to convince people it really happened.
See, those are the story. That's what it's stuff like that needs to be heard. I mean, that's
that was a big moment. It wasn't my moment, but I was like,
no, but just to be part of it, my gosh.
Yeah, to be, and I mean, maybe I should have closed the door and minded my own business, but I got to see what's going to happen. I I thought maybe because Ghost was on, he like went in there and had a mask on and was going to scare the crap.
Right.
I just had to see it, and that wasn't what I was expecting, but it absolutely made my I don't know how I was on cloud nine for quite a while after that, because I just thought that was such a cool thing for him to do.
That's an emotional, and this was the last question that they had. I wanted to say this one for the end because I was thinking about the answer myself, but I can't. If you had the chance to talk to him one more time, what would you say? That's from Marisol.
Jeez Louise.
I know.
Yeah, that's hard because you just, like, I guess the question would have to be a little bit more defined. Like, I mean, do I have just like one sentence I'm going to get to say, or can we go back in time? If we could go back in time, well, I've told people this. Oh, I've told a few people this. If I could go back in time, I'd probably be in prison right now, because knowing what I know now, back in time, I could eliminate some of his problems. But I guess if I could just, if I could send him one more message or whatever, I would thank him for everything he's done for everybody on this planet. I mean, what a big impact he's made, and on me, including me. I mean, I'm not a Michael Jackson fan. I never was. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean,
no, I understand. Yeah.
Well, people, it's funny because people, when they, how long did you work there? When did you become a Michael Jackson fan? I go, well, I guess really, I said, technically I became a Michael Jackson fan probably about a year or two after I started working there. And I said, I'm not really a Michael Jackson fan like you think. I'm a Michael Jackson fan of Michael Jackson, the person, because everybody knows, whether you like it, everybody knows the song Dance Man. And everybody, any kind of musical appreciation's got to appreciate how talented he is.
Sure.
Whether it was their genre of music or not, they gotta admit that he was a very talented person. But getting to see, I think Neverland is what did it for me. Getting to see, because the first time I went out there and inspected it, I thought it was kind of weird. I'm like, what the heck? It was. I've been in the amusement business all my life, and I had a ton of respect for whoever did this, because it was such a beautiful place. Like the general contractor and Rob Swenson, everybody was involved in building it. And the landscape, the gardeners that work out there. And I mean, it was just a beautiful place. But I had no idea what he did there. I just thought it was like when he came off tour and wanted to go ride the Ferris wheel, they could. And I just thought, it's kind of weird having an amusement park in your backyard. But then after I started working there, and then of course, working in the park, you're kind of like the central part of these events when these kids from the hospital come. And the longer I worked there, the more involved I was with the whole event and the scheduling and everything. And people, and it was actually embarrassing because people would thank me. Well, I'm not saying just thank me. They thank every employee out there, but whenever they're talking, they'd say, thank you. And
Right.
Everybody out there. But you're like, it's really, we're just doing our job. And we're doing is Mike. And I know that Michael was there sometimes, and sometimes he wasn't. And I know they were all thankful. And then you get these letters. And some of these letters, especially the kids fighting terminal illness and their families. And I know this from, I became good friends with a kid that had cystic fibrosis, and you learn about young kids that have terminal illness, their family, their siblings and their parents are their best friends, because they're in and out of the hospital so much that they really don't get the typical socializing of friends and everything. And you get these letters from these parents and doctors and nurses describing what that day at Neverland did for that kid. They totally forgot about their issues, their problems, prognosis or whatever. And it was also for the family, the brothers and sisters and parents. It was like it's a memory they're going to have the rest of their life. A great memory, a fabulous memory that they're going to have the rest of their life. Even after their child's passed away. So being part of that was.
Sure. one of the conversations he told you about when it was just you and him, what he wanted Neverland to be in the future and what his hopes were for, that it would live on past everyone and become a place that kids and stuff like that
Yeah.
could.
Well, and that was probably, I can't pick one moment, but we're going back to that question about one of your favorite moments. That's a story that reminds me of when Mr. Jackson came home. We didn't have any guests scheduled for the next day, so I didn't think I'd see him, but we had the park ready to go just in case. And I was actually in my office, and he came in there, and I'd never seen him. There was a room behind the Sea Dragon that was part of it had the equipment, the hydraulic equipment that ran the Sea Dragon. Part of it was a room, and part of it was storage, and then there was a small little area that was like my office. And my back was to the door, but I knew I could tell that somebody came in, so I turned around, and it was Mr. Jackson. And he's looking at all this stuff with the Sea Dragon. But anyway, we ended up, he wanted to watch something other than Peter. We had Peter Pan was playing, the animated version of Peter Pan was playing all the time on the Jumbotron. Because I was told that's all he wants on there. So he came in there and he goes, "Do we have something else we can play on the Jumbotron?" And I immediately escorted him to this closet that had all these videos. It was before DVDs, we had discs, and we had regular VHS, and then we had some stuff that was on, I think they call it 3/4 inch, like what the production studios used to use, or the TV studios or whatever. And so he's looking through all this stuff and looking through all this stuff and looking through all this stuff, all these different movies, and the Three Stooges and Looney Tunes and on and on and on. And he picks the movie Hook. And I'm like, well, that'll be a big change. It's just the same thing I've been watching, but it's got real people in it. So he goes, "Put this on." And this is like the middle of the afternoon. So I put that on, and we walked out, and he started watching, and he sat down at this picnic table, and he goes, "Sit down." And I'm like, okay. So I sat down, and we just we're watching it. And it's funny because we just started talking about everything, just everything. I mean, just whatever. What are you doing after work? Just casual, just talking, which blew my mind. And
Sure.
But every once in a while, something would come up on the screen, and he was friends with all those movie people, and he would like, "Oh, I was there. I helped design this, this set. I came up with some of the artwork for there, some ideas, like blah, blah, blah." And then we go back to talking. But I'd say we sat there for the entire movie, whatever, hour and a half.
Wow.
For the last hour, we just talked about Neverland and how, it was almost choked me up. Just, well, it does a little bit now when I think back on it, but he was so passionate about it. And I could tell that he enjoyed Neverland, but he really built that for what we were doing for the inner city kids and the kids in the hospital and the orphanages, and whatever, all the stuff we did through Heal the World and Make-A-Wish,
Right.
whoever nonprofit requested, we tried to have an event for him, and that's what he built that place. It was just part of his ongoing effort to heal the world and fix everybody, and that was so yeah. I kind of I wish it was still open and operating.
Sure.
But,
Sure. There's like a whole generation. I was talking to someone the other day. There's a whole generation that never got to, got cheated out of. Just seeing him like.
When I kept copies of all these letters that we got from all these different doctors and nurses and brothers and sisters. And when I read those, I think, man, how many more hundreds of thousands of letters could be written if that place was still open? It was so,
Sure.
To me, it was so unfair that it was, that all these people were, whatever.
You told me some of the parents said it was the best day of their kids' lives.
Yeah, it was the biggest, the biggest memory. This one family, and they actually stayed in touch with me for a while. They'd send me stuff around. They're from Australia, and their kid, I want to say it was 10, 11, 12 years old. And it was a group, it was a I think I think they were all kids with cancer and they were from us. I think they were all from Australia. And they had gone, I think they'd gone to Universal and Disney, and this was like their third or fourth or fifth day of the trip. And this was then they're going to go back to Australia or something. I don't remember the whole, but this kid was on crutches. He was missing a leg from surgery from cancer. And he showed an interest in the steam train, and I never really volunteered this, but if somebody just started asking questions or showed a big interest in the steam train, I would offer if they would want to do what we called a cab ride, which means they got to ride. They didn't ride actually right in the engine because it's so hot up there and there's so many, possibilities hurt. But just like a foot behind where the engineer sits, there's a big bench on what's called the tender, which is actually the second car, but it looks like it's all one piece, and that's where the water was. And in the old days, that'd be where the coal or wood was. We didn't have that, but we had this bench, and I would let them ride there. And usually I'd have them come up and I'd let them blow the whistle or something up front. But once the train started moving, I wanted them to sit down. But anyway, I did the certificate from Neverland Railroad naming this person as a co-engineer, and they were numbered, and I don't remember the highest number I ever got, but I don't think we might have done 100 the whole time the steam train was there. So it was kind of a rare thing. And but anyway, so I printed out, once I dropped the guests off, I'd go back to my office, I'd print out the certificate and make sure they got it before the day. Anyway, that was such a big deal to that family, not just that kid, but that family. Cause he talked about it, for, whatever. And it was, I don't know, a few years later, I think I got a letter saying that he passed away or whatever, but just to be able to be part of that and to witness and to have the family, let how big a deal that was, to be part of it. I thank Mr. Jackson for letting me be part of it, because it was very rewarding to kind of, I don't want to say represent him, but just to be part of his dream to what he was doing for all those kids.
These are the stories, TMZ doesn't cover, so that's why we need people like you. No, really. How else would we know these things?
I've never got it. Yeah.
No, they don't want to talk to you. We want to talk to you. They don't want to. They don't want to talk.
Well, I probably don't want to talk to them either.
No. Not on camera anyway. But if we ran into them somewhere, if we would get my glove dirty, but we just. You want to tell the Thanksgiving story? As it's Thanksgiving somewhere around the world already.
Yeah. Actually, in Australia, I think I checked the time there. I was gonna send Paul a message earlier, and I said, well, I'm gonna check and see what time it was. I think it was 5 a.m. So I waited. I haven't sent him that message. Well, actually, I think I did a little bit later.
I think they're a day ahead and 5 hours behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It was 5 a.m. Thursday when I checked this morning. I can't remember what time it was here, but it was like 5 a.m. or something there. But anyway, so Thanksgiving, and I don't know, when I tell the story, I know that everybody likes the story, and it was huge for me, but it really does. It tells, which I guess all of my stories kind of tell. What I really want to do is I wanted people to understand how he affected me and how being part of his world affected me. But I really want people to know through my stories, what a little bit more about him, what he was really like. So I think this story kind of conveys a little bit of what he was like. So it's Thanksgiving, and we could, almost every holiday weekend, whatever, we knew we were going to be busy at the ranch. And we got the word, I think the day before. Yeah, it was the day, it was the day before or 2 days before. And Michael was actually home, but he wasn't going to have any guests. And he said, nobody has to work Thanksgiving Day. I'm thinking, what? He's got to have somebody. I'm thinking, well, I'm sure he can make himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but somebody's got to be here to feed the guy. But I guess, anyway, and security obviously had to work and fire. But anyway, so I told my guys in the park, and nobody has to work Thanksgiving. And then Thanksgiving, I'm going to the grocery, Thanksgiving morning, I'm going to the grocery store to get some chips and salsa and beer so I can go watch football all day. And I come out, and this was, well, I don't want to say pre-cell phones, but it was when cell phones were the size of a VCR and cost, $700 a month to operate. But I had a pager, and a pager said, it had a 911 with somebody down south in LA, MJJ production wise, to give him a call. So, and the day before, Mark in the zoo was involved in a bad accident. So I'm thinking could be some bad news about Mark, or maybe some good news. So I called, and she was actually very joyful. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I said, that doesn't sound like a 911 call. She laughed, and she goes, what are you doing? I go, well, I guess I'm going to the ranch. And she laughed again. She goes, do you mind? I go, no, what do you want me? What's going on? She goes, all you got to do, if you don't mind, go there and drive Michael and his kids down to the Havenhurst house. I go, sure. She goes, security's got the limo filled up and washed, and it'll be parked out by the fuel pumps. Just get it, and they'll notify him when you're ready. And okay. So when he gets in the car, I asked him, I'd never driven him anywhere. Well, actually, I might have driven him to Lompoc for 4th of July fireworks, which is another story. But I'd never driven him down south, so I didn't know there's two different ways to go. You can either turn right up there on the highway and head over to 101 and straight down, or you can go left and go over San Marcos Pass, which San Marcos Pass is a pretty windy mountain road, and I prefer not to take it. It's a little bit shorter, but I think time-wise it's probably the same. But anyway, I asked him, I said, well, you go over San Marcos Pass, you go down 101. And he said, well, you're driving, whichever way you want to go. I said, okay. I said, I think we'll go down there because it's still daylight. I said, we'll go down there over the pass. And I said, coming back later, I said, it'll be dark. I said, okay. And he said, I think he said, safety first. So anyway, we go down to Havenhurst, and I pull in there. They all get out and go in the house, and the security guy down there says he's going to get a couple of cars moved, and he wants me to back out and then back in, and he's going to put me in a spot where if Michael decides he wants to leave before, there won't be anybody blocking me in. So whenever Michael decides he wants to leave, we can just load up the car and go. That's okay, great. So I get the car turned around, and I'm in the back, and I'm making sure everything's, actually they didn't really make a mess, but I just checked in the back, and I thought, well, I'll sit back here and watch a movie because I'm just sure we're going to be here for a couple of hours. And so I'm sitting in there, and a bunch of the kids, extended family, like nephews and nieces, are all running around the backyard, and they all kind of stopped and slammed into each other because they saw me, and apparently they didn't know I could leave Neverland. They thought I was part of Neverland. They were shocked to see me. Anyway, they're all, they're all, hello. I think they want to know if I brought any amusement rides with me or something. Oh, but anyway, so a little bit later, here comes Michael. And he goes, hey, do you want to come inside and eat, Thanksgiving dinner? And I'm thinking, man, I wish I had a video camera of this. I knew that he was being very gracious, and I think he really wanted me to come in, but I'm thinking, I would just feel so out of place. The whole thing, I just figured I'd be in there. It'd be like that Twilight Zone camera, the whole family staring at me like this. What are you doing? And so I very politely said, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. I thanked him for offering. I said, no. And anyway, so a little bit later, he comes out and he brings me a plate of food. And over the course of the night, he checked on me 2 or 3 times, and I'm thinking to myself, he really wants somebody to come in there, and I don't know, interference for him or what. But I just thought it was really cool that he came out and checked on me a couple of times, brought me food, asked me if I wanted dessert. Yeah. It was just for me, it was a
Sure.
Pretty special Thanksgiving.
Just a thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Any stories you have in closing? We thank you for your time, as always.
I'm sure if I sat here long enough or you asked me a question, I could think of something else, but as long as I hopefully answered the questions of.
You answered everybody's questions. I'll be happy. I got to hear my favorite stories, a couple new ones. Love the Big Al, the alligator. I mean, all the, the funny, the sad, the in between, the humanitarian, it's a little bit of everything, right? It was.
Now, are we doing, did we want to tell another ghost story or are we going to do another one?
I was going to say, I mean, if you have one, the one you went in Stan Winston's studio, I thought that time with the child, with the.
Oh, okay, yeah. You may tell that one now?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. So since it's close to the anniversary of Ghost, we got to tell a couple of ghost stories. And well, shouldn't say, maybe ghost stories isn't the right way to phrase it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So one of the kids in the hospital that saw the video at the ranch was asking questions about it. And this kid spent a lot of time, I think, at Children's Hospital LA, which isn't that far from Stan Winston Studios was basically right on the back fence side of the Van Nuys Airport. And so I call it, since I got to meet, which that's another story, but they had what they call a wrap party when the video was, at that time, me along with nobody else other than if you were actually working with Michael on the video, didn't know anything about it. But they had a wrap party. So I got to meet Stan Winston and most all of the people that were in it. And Stan was just super, super, super nice, down to earth guy. And told me if I was ever down there and wanted to come see his studio and everything. And, so I thought, well, I'm going to call down there and see if I can take this kid. Seemed to have a real interest in, the special effects and whatnot. So they said, oh yeah, no problem. Bring him down. So I went down there and I didn't realize at the time until I got there, and I can't remember the guy's name. He's actually in the credits. He worked for Stan Winston Studios. He was the guy that was going to give me the tour, but he kind of explained to me that I asked him why, outside it just looks like a plain building, doesn't have anything. And he goes, well, in the movie industry, everything that we do or everything that anybody does like this it's very competitive and very top secret. And we're working on a movie that's coming out, and they don't want anything about that to get out in the public or anything to get out to another movie company, because they'll make a movie just like it. I mean, it's like it's a dog eat dog, I guess, in the movie industry. Okay, so that made me appreciate it even more, that this is a pretty big deal to actually get to go inside Stan Winston Studios.
Yeah, top secret.
That just doesn't happen unless you really have a legitimate reason of being there. So, and when you first walk in, there's a reception area, and then he takes me into that starts the tour, and you go into this room. It's a fairly large conference room, and it's all black carpeting. It's kind of dark in there, and the table's lit up, and there's these like steps, big step, they're ledges, and there's all these life-size creations of all these different things that Stan, Terminator, he did the first Jurassic Park, Alien, Congo, whatever it's called. Anyway, there's all these statues. So if you're in there having a conference meeting, you got all these monsters staring over your shoulder. I go, how do you get any work done in here with all these things staring at you, And anyway, so you go from there, you go to another area, and then we wound up in the makeup room, which is right where during the making of Ghost video, that's where Michael was getting made up, where I was in that room right there. And
Wow.
Then we went in, different rooms that did different things, and some of the rooms were huge and some of them were small. And anyway, we come to another door, and he goes, well, he says they're actually working on a project for a movie that's, in the process of being made, so we can't go in there because it's like, top secret. Okay. He goes, well, let me find, because it was a room where the guys did a lot of the robotic stuff. I mean, they made the robotic stuff. So he really wanted to show it to me. So he called in there, and Stan Winston was actually in there. And he said, are you guys still working in there? Can I bring, a couple of guests in? And from my side of the conversation, it sounded like Stan must have asked him who it was, because it goes, it's Big Al from Neverland. He goes, oh yeah, yeah. So we got to go in, even though they were still actually, it was a movie, Small Soldiers. Yeah, I think it was called Small Soldiers. We had this little, it was like, a little bit bigger than a typical G.I. Joe doll, and it was looked just like Tommy Lee Jones, because he actually did the voice for the part in the movie. But this thing was so realistic, and the guy could make it, move its head and blink its eyes and move its mouth, and like, man, it was amazing that they could do, robotics that, that small. And this is, obviously quite a few years ago. So, but anyway, it was just it was a big moment being able, I was probably as excited as this little kid was, but it really made his day to get to see all this. And it was all thanks to my connection with Michael and Neverland, that I got to meet Stan Winston, that I got to, I got the resources. And I don't want to ever say I ever used my resources to benefit myself. I really did this for this kid, because I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely enjoyed it. And I enjoyed having good tickets to the, to Michael's concert, but
Sure.
that wasn't what it was all about.
No.
And, yeah. But anyway, Stan Winston, he passed away. I can't remember. He had some disease. I can't remember what it was, but he treated Michael so good. I mean, he treated Michael like a little brother. I mean, it was just, they had a big water balloon fight out there, and Stan Winston's team, of course, lost because he was playing against Michael, and I was the guy that got, although everybody was soaking wet. And the losing team has to take turns sitting on we had a dunk tank, and the losing team has to sit on the dunk tank while the winning team throws baseballs and dunks them. And I'm like, this big time movie director guy, he was the first one up there. He goes, we got to sit on a dunk tank. Okay. He ran over there and jumped up there. He was the first. I go, he is just like he's a little kid, it's like, so anyway, Stan Winston, great guy, great video. I hope they release a nice, honest to goodness, real Blu-ray with the story behind it and everything. I mean,
when I was at the Havenhurst house, they had the room, there was the thriller room and the ghost room, and we were up close to those, and it was, unbelievable. I don't know if the camera, showed exactly what the, the detail, but when you see Ghost on the big screen, it's
yeah.
Speaking of getting wet,
I'm spoiled rotten.
What? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said I'm spoiled rotten because the first 50 times I saw a Ghost was at Neverland.
Yeah.
On a big screen with the sound system. I go, it's not. I tell people, I've got some video. I've a friend of mine. I bought the what they call video CD, but it has a hard time playing in some units. It plays on my computer. Okay. Anyway, I had a friend burn some copies of it, and the quality is not very good, but I took copies out, and I said, now you have to find the biggest TV and the biggest sound system you can find. And you can't watch it on your phone or,
Yeah. Good. One more story. People don't know, when you were saying about getting wet at Neverland, there's a famous video of Michael when he gets shoved in the pool saying, I'm a nice person.
Oh yeah.
And up until I met you, I'm saying, who was the photographer on that?
Yeah.
Would you like to share?
Well, I think there's more than one video. There's one where I think he actually jumped in off the diving board, and I don't think it's the same video, but there was, and I can't go on about who all was there, but somebody else actually started videotaping. Michael wanted that particular day videotaped, and they my phone's ringing there.
You can get it.
That's all right. Where was I? Oh, so anyway, Michael wanted this particular day with the particular guest. Okay, hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Hello. Hey. Well, I'm doing the Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Stand up for a second. for those watching, we're here at Holly Terrace,
Okay. Okay.
outside Michael's window, getting ready for Thanksgiving tomorrow. I was
Okay,
talking
I'm
with
back.
Big Al. He's back.
I'm back. I got out an order. When I'm done, I got to go get some cupcakes and take them out to where our horses are. So one of the girls, it's her birthday. So
Oh, see,
we have a
Big
bunch of
Al's always
students.
doing good deeds.
We have a bunch of students that they're all like, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old girls, and we got a dozen horses out there in a big arena, and they're all learning how to do what they call pole bending and barrel racing. And I mean, it's all really slow for little kids, but somebody's birthday, and of course everything like that's a big event around here. So I got to go get some cupcakes and take them out to the barn.
Nice. All right, go ahead. Give us your final story there.
So what were we talking about?
I'm a nice person. Jumping in the water. Who was the photographer? Who was behind that camera?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it started out with somebody else because Michael wanted to have dinner in the amusement park that night. I found all this out a little bit later when this person came up to me. He was kind of this particular person that was doing the videotaping. I don't know if he did something wrong or whatever, but he had a little bit of an attitude. He gives me the camera. He says, "Here." I go, "What?" he goes, "Just go down there and find Michael, and he'll tell you what to do." He's you got to videotape, what they're doing. They're in the pool, and they're going to have a water balloon fight, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And he goes, and then later they're going to come down to the amusement park and have dinner in the amusement park, and they want you to show the video up on the Jumbotron. So now I'm a little bit nervous because I'm like, holy crap, we're going to watch this on the Jumbotron. I better do it. I'm like, I hope I don't make it. He goes, "Don't worry, Michael will tell you what to do. You don't have to be you don't have to be an expert videographer. Just Michael will tell you what to do." Okay. So I go down there and he's like, "Yeah, we're just going, we're doing, just start shooting us doing whatever we're doing." And so he did get pushed in the pool that time. I have to watch the video again because I'm sure that he got pushed in the pool more than once, whether was somebody else videotaping it or not, I don't know. But the one I did, he definitely got pushed in the pool. And they came down to the park later. I don't know how much tape was on it, probably at least 30 minutes before I got there. And then I probably shot another 30 minutes. And anyway, showed it during dinner. Michael was very, very, very happy. "Oh, thank you. So
I'm just thinking, you never would have dreamed on your first day in your job description, right? The things that you had to do. I mean, like to say you're the amusement park manager or director is not. It doesn't really sum up what you did. I mean, it's.
Well, yeah, I tell people, I go, I wore a lot of hats there, and I think it was part of it is I'm very lucky that prior to going to work there, because of all the travel I did. I mean, I did international. I flew all over the world doing amusement ride, maintenance and safety inspections, and I got to experience a lot of just how things are done. And sometimes the client would put us in very nice places, and I knew I really got the feeling that Michael wanted his guests when they came there, which typically if they're just coming there for a day event, you can't really go into the full 5-star resort type atmosphere. But for guests that spent, guests that came multiple times or spent the night or spent the weekend or whatever, I think he really wanted them to, because he got, when he went on tour, he of course stayed in, all the 5-star resorts. So he knew what that was like, and he wanted those people. He wanted all his guests at Neverland to experience that. Because every once in a while, we ended up getting some really, really nice, really plushed out brass luggage carts, to take. If people showed up with a lot of luggage, take it from the front of the house. It used to be just a bunch of us go out there and carry everything. Well, he must have been somewhere. He probably was riding one around, in the elevator or something. He just, we need some of these at Neverland, So I just felt that he, kind of wanted that 5-star experience, and just some of the things that, like, one of the things I came up with, and it's not a big deal, but I think it added to the guest experience. We didn't do it for the guests that were, just private guests, but when we did an event, we had a schedule, but we just kind of verbally told them this is what we're doing. I said, well, why don't I make up a schedule for the day on and print it on Neverland stationery, tell them, welcome them here. This is where the restrooms are. We're going to start out doing this, and then we're going to do this, and just, and print out whatever, 60 or 70 of them and give one to everybody. And whether they survive or not, it's just a little something extra. And we had, we used to have like these little stick-on name tags. And then I said, well, why don't we go to wristbands and get, Neverland or something printed on the wrist. We can buy some wristbands, something that looks a little bit more, a little more professional or whatever. And actually some of them actually had nice lanyards made. And so just all those little things that, I think added to the, the professionalism of what we were doing out there. And whether it meant anything to the guests or not, I don't know. But
was that, I saw the menus at the Havenhurst house. They had the menus from Neverland, and there was something. Was it the safety procedures you wrote, or there was something hanging on the wall that I thought you said you knew what it was from the Havenhurst house in the Neverland room?
Yeah, I wrote up, I'd have to go back and look to see if it's the same thing I wrote, but yeah, I wrote up, I said, we need to have a plan. I mean, everybody gets tired of hearing the safety guy talk about all, but if there's ever, we could have there, we could have had a bomb threat, we could have, who knows what, and to have something, I mean, the liability, is probably not really there like it is in a typical hotel or whatever, but I said, I think it's a good idea to just give I learned something a long time ago in the risk management business about coming up with a procedure. I said, you don't want to make something, 10 pages long because people aren't going to read it. But if you can kind of get the high points on one page, and hopefully they'll understand that if this happens, everybody needs to walk out to the, everybody walk out to the center where the statue is in front of the house. So we can at least get a count if everybody's counted for. And then figure out what the event, what's going on, what the emergency is, where do we need to move people. So, I mean, I said, we need to have something. I mean, you go to any hotel, whether it's a Motel 6 or, a $2,500 a night suite at one of the casinos, they all have a safety procedure.
Yeah.
So I said, really, I mean, we really should do something, So, yeah.
All right. Anything else? We're waiting for the book.
Yeah.
Audio. You do both.
Well, I'm sure, yeah. I've had, actually, I've talked to a couple of people who have done books, nothing like this, but other things. And one of them I asked about, well, how do you get it published? And this one girl I've known forever in the carnival business, she wrote kind of a well, I don't want to say something, but anyway.
Wow.
She does it self-publishing. And she goes, I mean, I don't know how much that costs or what's involved there. Because I talked to that Bill Whitfield about when he got his book published. He goes, he went to a dozen different publishers.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody's interested when it says something about Michael, but when there's nothing negative in it,
right.
Like, we're not interested.
Maybe ask Paul. Maybe ask
yeah.
Paul Dwyer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to self-publishing. I don't know what you can come up with up front to do that, but I got to believe that, as long as they don't lose any money, I'm not out to make money, but I just like to, I like to tell the stories.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're always here for you if you need us, our group. We're glad to have you part of it, all the events. It's good seeing you out here at Forest Fun whenever you show. And I look forward to our Vegas dinners. You always pick good restaurants. Haven't had a bad time.
Yeah.
So we thank you again. Happy holidays if I don't see you. And
right.
On behalf of everyone, we thank Big Al Scanlan.
All righty.
All right.
Well,
Thanks, Big Al.
You're going to put this on.
I'm going to hopefully it's going to download to, I'll go Facebook, and then we're hoping YouTube. I'll send it to you as soon as it gets posted. I probably have to go back to the hotel and do it.
All right.
All right.
You're at Forest Lawn right now, right?
What was that? I'm sorry.
You're at Forest Lawn right now?
I'm at Forest Lawn. Yeah, right now. I'll be back tomorrow. We're doing the flowers and the reading of the poster, everybody's names, and then I'm going to be here Friday morning.
You're doing that on Facebook, right?
Yeah, I'll be on
You're
Facebook
doing
Live,
that.
Facebook Live tomorrow morning, 11 Pacific.
Okay.
All right.
All
And
right.
why don't you leave us? How do they, what do they say at Neverland?
Goodbye for now.
Thank you, Big Al.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Later.